Hello, friends. I'm Nicole Song, and this is the School of Self Worth. Thank you so much for being here. And today we have got a super fun, big topic, one that is relevant to any high achieving Asian woman, or really to anyone who is a high achiever and wants to also be able to support the Asian American women in their life. Because I'm going to talk about some of the biases that come up for Asian American women in the workplace and how to start to counter them, as well as other common challenges that come up for Asian American women stepping into their power in the workplace. And this one is so essential when I look at the big picture of leadership for Asian American women and really the stats that are out there, like of all the women in management in corporate workplaces, only 3% are Asian American. So that to me alone is like, oh, that is cause to press into this topic to be like, what is happening? And there's obviously always systemic issues, but then there's also the ones that come from us. And this is the place where I know we have the most power to make change and to make shifts. And so that's really what we're going to address today, the three common mistakes that are making you look less powerful at work. I'm going to share some things I've learned over the years, as well as some tips that have really helped my clients to step into their power in a totally different way that has led to recognition, to visibility, to promotions. And before we get started, if you are an AAPI woman who wants to manifest a promotion in 60 days, working 20% fewer hours, DM me promotion on to at Nicole Song on Instagram. I've got something for you and let's chat. Okay, friends, let's dive into today's conversation. Okay, everyone. So, our topic today is the three common mistakes making you look less powerful at work. And when I really look into topics like this, like it's so fascinating to me. There's just so much to learn about ourselves in this journey of stepping into power at work. There's so much to learn about the experiences for Asian American women in workplaces. So I'm not gonna dance around this too much with too much preamble. I'm just really gonna get into the topic because this first mistake is it's a mix of both biases as well as what we're doing and the actions that we're taking. And this first mistake is relying too much on being kind and warm. And this also can be interpreted as being really quiet in the workplace. So there's a Harvard study that shows that people have difficulty seeing Asian American women as both kind and competent. It's hard to reconcile both of them. So there's this perception that you can't be both of those things. And when you're competent, right? So if you are super competent, I know there's some of you that are listening who are just really on top of it and you're getting stuff done. And it's hard for people to perceive you as warm and kind. It's hard for people to feel like they can connect with you. But on the flip side, if you are a warm, kind person, you can often be considered quiet and then not competent. And so if you're in this category, this, by the way, has nothing to do with your accomplishments, your intelligence, and your ability. This is all just about perception. So if you're in the category of being perceived as quiet, can you see how that might not put you in place for being considered as a leader at work? And I care about you being able to step into your own power in a really authentic way. And we have to also understand some of the perceptions that are out there. Now, I am someone who falls more into the quiet, kind side than I do into the competent side. And maybe you're like, Nicole, that sounds crazy. That's not how I see you. That's because I really had to learn to step into my own authority and competence and share that more powerfully. So we're going to talk about that. And some of you I know fall into the other side. And if you want to hear me talk more about that kindness and warmth, DM me on Instagram. Let me know what you want so that I can make sure to help you out and support you all with this podcast. So for those who are in that kind, warm, quieter side of things, and it's hard for you to really step into authority, this is one way to start to work on it. And this is something that I had to really learn and do. And just a little bit of background, like I have always been really quiet. I've talked about it on other podcasts, but I was just like to reiterate for people who are new here that I really was a quiet kid. Like I didn't talk. I was always in the back of the room. I was a younger sister. Like I just never really had that confidence to speak up. Like I was really good at school though. Like I always got great grades. I was always in like top 10 in my class. I went to a great college, all of those things. But it was really hard for me to speak up and to advocate for myself. It was really hard for me to put myself out there consistently. So this quiet piece of me really got challenging the longer I was in a career where you had to start telling people what you wanted. And then particularly the big change for me came when I wanted to be a yoga teacher, because being quiet literally is not in the job description. Like you have to stand in front of people and use a strong, powerful voice to instruct them to move their bodies. And while you don't have to be loud, you still have to be powerful. And so some of the things I have learned around this are really about how you are interacting and engaging with others to show authority. Because you can show authority in certain ways, like telling people about your background, the things that you've done. I mean, typically, I do find when I share my background, people are surprised because they see me as like that. They still have that sort of kinder, warm side of things to myself. And showing competency, I often will show competency by sharing some things that I've done. But I'm not here to tell you guys to go around bragging about things, because in the workplace, like that's not necessary. Like you can advocate for yourself by speaking up to the things that you have done and not constantly only giving credit to your team, but also giving credit to yourself. So this is one piece of it. But I'm talking about more, how do you start to show on a daily basis that competency, that confidence, that quality of really being authoritative in who you are. And the thing I'm going to tell you that is going to be surprising, because it's not what you think. And this one is still really a massive way to go deeper into your own authority. And it comes from learning to pause. It comes from learning to be okay with silence. Silence is so powerful. And if you pay attention to real leaders, they don't talk that much. And when people ask them direct questions, they usually pause before they respond. And even when you look at really powerful speakers, they also pause a lot while speaking. Like, watch Barack Obama speak. He pauses all the time because it is powerful. And when you do this, you not only show to the person you're speaking with or the group you're with that you are confident with silence, it also gives you the opportunity to learn to pay attention, to tune in to your own intuition, to tune into a bigger space and listening that is not in the busyness, in the filling in the gaps. And that energy of like talking constantly is taking away your power in those moments. And then when you also learn that silence and pause, you learn to understand how to speak to what is most important, not to fill in the gaps, not to constantly tell people every thought in your head, why you made the decision that you did. Sometimes people need to know, but a lot of times they really just need to know the decision. So learning to be in that pause actually allows you that retaining of your own power, and then leaning forward into speaking in a way that is meaningful and impactful. And that's what's powerful, speaking with impact. And I used to hate doing this. I was definitely a filler. Like I would just talk to fill space. But I have learned that when I pause, and especially like I think back to my days teaching yoga, and sometimes I wouldn't speak like 30 seconds, a minute. And those were really powerful moments for my class, for people to feel, to get tuned in. And now I've learned also that the more I pause, the more I step into my own power. And I also am more willing to share my thoughts. I'm more willing to share my perspectives. And I've also learned that people are often very inspired by what I have to say. So when I have learned to lean on this pause, it has made a huge difference. So for you, if you're out there and you are in that kind and that quiet, and quiet and pausing are different, by the way. Quiet is not saying anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you're asked a question, when you're in conversation, when you're leading, when you are the head of a meeting or you're talking to your team, you learn to use and leverage that pause in those conversations. And it will teach you to speak in those moments you have something to say instead of holding back. Okay, so I'm going to take us into the second mistake that makes you look less powerful, and this one is also very common, you apologize for everything or just too much in general. You're saying, I'm sorry all the time. And so when you say, I'm sorry, let's look at the dynamic of this. When you say, I'm sorry, you're saying the other person is right and that you are wrong. So when you look at the energy of that, you are bringing in more of this energy like, you're right, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I say this as someone who really values a true apology. I'm not talking about true apologies. I'm talking about people who say, I'm sorry for every small thing that's going on. What happens when you apologize like this, when you say, I'm sorry constantly, is you're giving your power to the other person. The other person already has the upper hand immediately, whether it's your boss or a coworker or someone on your team. That energy of I did something wrong, like, can you see why I'm sorry is it's not a powerful position to be in for yourself. Like, if you have to reschedule something, it doesn't make you a bad human. It makes you a human with a busy schedule with moving parts. So it simply means something came up and you don't actually have to apologize for it. You can say, if you didn't say everything you wanted in a meeting, you do not have to apologize for that. You can simply say, oh, wow, there's something for me to learn or to see for next time. I don't have to apologize for not saying that. And during this, the way to really shift yourself out of this apology is there are a couple simple practices. One of the ones that I really like that I use all the time is I replace I'm sorry with thank you. So if I have to reschedule or do something different, I always say, thanks for your patience. If I'm late on something or I haven't replied to something, I say, thanks for your patience. And it often is that. Like, I don't have to be sorry about that. I can just say, thank you for waiting. So notice in your emails, notice in how you speak, can you shift I'm sorry into thank you for your patience? And the other part of it is to remember that your brain expands from praise and positivity. That's actually how we grow. We do not grow from criticism. So, that I'm sorry energy is often a very critical lack energy. And so, to shift yourself into being more supportive and appreciating yourself and really learning to lean into practices like that will allow you to stop saying, I'm sorry for moments that you don't need to. And instead, you start to ask yourself questions like, oh, what can I learn from this? Like, if I didn't do everything the way that I wanted to perfectly in that presentation, instead of apologizing for it, now what can I know for the next time? All right. So, the last piece of this is the really big picture of what's going on. And this one is about second guessing yourself. And if you are in this old habit of questioning yourself, and when you say it out loud, you're questioning yourself, you are essentially putting in the energy of self doubt. And when you're in that energy of self doubt, and this is how the law of attraction works, when you're in it, you're now inviting more of that energy in. The more you're focusing on your self doubt and questioning yourself, the more that is entering your life and how you're experiencing things. And it's probably very easy to do if you grew up with cultural programming that, like, you have to do the best possible, like, all the time. Your parents are like, A's are not enough, only A pluses. And then it's so hard for you to do that all the time. And your like expectations are so high that you're really second guessing if you can do it. This kind of pressure can be part of the reason you're doing it. But this is a really sneaky thing to also understand about law of attraction and how this energy works. So not only does self-doubt invite in more self-doubt, it's not really just about what you think that matters. It's about who you are being. So if you are being a person who second guesses themselves all the time, that is going to really detract from feeling confident and powerful. The way to be a person who's confident and powerful is to start to take steps to shift your thinking out of the negative space, out of the second guessing, out of the self doubt, and shifting your energy into someone who is confident, who is powerful, right? This is, again, that shift that is required from taking pauses and silence, like the first step I was talking about. And then the second step is really learning to shift your language into saying from I'm sorry to thank you. And this third one is around, okay, I second guess myself. What can I do instead to move myself out of that? And really, one of the biggest steps is to practice appreciation. And this one is so simple. I like to do it with just the sentence I appreciate, fill in the blank. And it can be very tiny. It can just be like, I appreciate myself for making breakfast today. I appreciate myself for packing a good lunch. I appreciate that I have scheduled in the workout that's really going to serve me today. And it could be any of those things. It can be related to work. I mean, I think work appreciations are important. And it's important for us to appreciate all these little pieces that are happening. And the more you can do this and appreciate yourself, that is going to counter that energy of second guessing. That is going to counter the energy of over explaining yourself. This is going to counter the energy of constantly needing to validate through other people and learning to validate yourself. And this gives you that confidence, it gives you that authority, it brings back that power internally instead of constantly sourcing that power out to what other people have to say, their praise, their thoughts for you. Now it becomes, how do you feel about yourself? How do you think? How is your own internal dialogue supporting yourself? And the more you do that, I promise you, the more powerful you truly will be. So, if this resonated with you, anything that I talked about here, DM me please on Instagram at Nicole Song, share your thoughts or screenshot this and share it out into the world. Tag me, let me know, because it is to me so vital to get this information out into the world. And if you know after hearing this, like you are ready to manifest your promotion in 60 days and you really want to know the exact step by step from my Asian visibility system to go deeper into all of the things that we talked today, because we really did just skim the surface talking about these. It's really, how do you go to that next level to truly get that visibility, recognition at work? DM me promotion at Nicole Song on Instagram and let's chat. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening today. I'm so grateful for all of you who are here, and I will see you again next week.